welcome once again to Sable's Worldforge. I hope everyone is doing well today. James first in the chat as usual. Good to see you, Lapping for Life. And hello Twinkle, good to see you as always. Salut Amelie. Savage aujourd'hui. Hi, Walking Dead lover. I understand the struggle is real. Oh, hey, Darth, thanks for renewing your subscription. Yay! Thank you so much. Support for the channel really is appreciated and valuable and goes directly to furthering the channel or my writing career. That's my budget, right? That's where it goes. So thank you so much for that. You guys are, you know, actually that gives me an opportunity to thank you all, right, for your overwhelming support over the past year or so. I have a decent budget with which to do this book coming up this year. This is what enabled me to be able to, like, okay, first of all, it covers mine and Aaron's, between this and the Patreon, it covers mine and Aaron's World Anvil fees, so that's awesome, right? So our website hosting, obviously, right? It covers stuff like our cover art that we're getting done, right? That commission for that art of Lorna last year, Lorna Sparkling Sky, right? Covered that. And the other thing is that also goes to directly support the community, because wherever possible, right? I believe I gotta pay somebody anyway. It might as well be somebody I know and like, right? If they could do the job. So I look for people in the community first. And this time, of course, the artists that got paper, Chaotica for the cover art, and Jamie Buckley for the commission of Lorna. So, you know, that's really awesome. So I really appreciate all the support. And it was nice to not have to go, what can I afford? You know, I can afford what I think the book deserves. So I think that's good, right? There will be a Kickstarter, of course, anyway, to offset printing costs and to try to recoup some of that. But, you know, like, it's really appreciated to have that. And then I can put that into another project, which we're starting to talk about, which we will talk about on State of the Multiverse, which, if you recall, has been postponed to this coming Thursday. So now back to saying hi to people. Hi, Kayatan, good to see you, and let's talk about your question. Okay, Kayatan says, and I have a problem with this as well, so it's important, it's a good issue to talk about. He says, I feel a little bit bad. I again started a new project when I had creative block on other projects. I said in response, let's talk about that. Where is it that you're getting stuck? Are you finding it's a similar place every time? To which he responded, after everybody had like a hug fest. What do you say here? Almost every time I run out of ideas for world building when a world is developed in a way which allows to write a story, but I have problems with finding a story. Okay. So that's fair. Went to use the cannons and they were turned off. Define what is meant by went to use the cannons and they were turned off. I am confused. Okay. Now, when I start writing a story, he goes on, I run out of ideas after 3 to 4 chapters, and planning doesn't help. And Shadow Malachi says, I just got back into world building today, actually. Hello! I seem to remember that you've been here before, but it's been quite a while. I'm glad to see you, and I hope you're well. How are you? I had a good friend in high school whose name is Malachi. It has been 2 years. Well, then we can't have met here, because my channel's been around now for almost a year, and that's it. So maybe it was on the World Anvil stream or something. But I remember your name because I had a friend named Malachi, and it's not like it's a common name, right? So, yeah. What's cool is that your name is showing up in green, and I always remember, you know, like I memorized Malachi when my, you know, with my high school friend by thinking of malachite. right? So, and Emily is back already. And Dan Stretch is here. Hello, Stretch. Good to see you. All right. So, running out of ideas when the world is developed and ready for a story after 3 or 4 chapters in. Okay, so what that tells me actually, and thank you, this gives me information that I actually can work with to help you there, Kayetan, because we haven't discussed this before. What you don't have is a story. What you have is a world. That's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. World building is valuable in and of itself, right? Like, I think it's an unrecognized kind of art form. There are writers who have made world building the thing, and stories may or may not happen in those worlds, and that's okay, right? You don't have to have a story just because you have a world. There was a writer, Olaf Stapledon, who is a science fiction writer from the 30s, right? The 1930s, obviously, right? And he, his whole thing was world building. His plot at best was kind of a minimal thread to kind of hold together an excuse to show you his world building. I've read 2 novels of his. The first one, I wish I could remember the titles. Just a sec, at Google. We will look this up. Okay, so Olaf Stapledon. Yeah, he isn't even listed as an author. He's listed as a British philosopher and author of science fiction, who was inducted into the Science Fiction and Fantasy Hall of Fame. So it's because his world building was really excellent. Now, okay, yes, all right, so the 2 novels by him that I am talking about are Star Maker and The Last and First Men. Okay, the one I read first was The Last and First Men, and in this one, basically he kind of detailed a future history of the human race and of our planet with kind of a transhumanist kind of perspective, right? The idea was that we as creatures would we'd have a bunch of destruction and rise again, and destruction and rise again, and eventually we would, there'd be a bunch of steps back and then a bunch of steps forward, and eventually we would transcend our bodies, develop psychic connection to various other beings in the universe, evolve ourselves so that we could live on Neptune and Venus and, different places like that. And eventually, even with all that, our sun went out and that was the end of us, right? And it was fascinating, right? The plot was a guy was having a vision and being shown all these things as they develop, right? Okay, the second book by him that I've read, which I'm still working through, is called Star Maker, right? The plot of this is that the guy is being shown through, again, psychic vision, connection to, like, his consciousness is traveling to other alien cultures around the universe, and basically the goal is, right, like, finding God, right, as they understand God, the Star Maker, the being who created it all, right? And it's so mind-blowingly vast that it's just amazing. This is good. This is good in and of itself, right? You don't have to have, like, honestly, he didn't have a plot. There's no plot involved, right? Let's see. It felt a bit like reading Gulliver's Travels, right? Where, Gulliver's going from place to place, and it's more about the weird shit he observes there than it is about a plot, per se. So there's no reason why you couldn't do that and take that as a narrative format and take people through the world, right? Another option you could use, a lot of people are doing this, of course, in the modern era, is monetizing their world through gaming, right? The Don't worry about a story. Worry about creating the universe and think about how that would apply to whatever your favorite role-playing game is. If you don't know a role-playing game that you like, go play one and find one, because there's millions out there. There's no reason why you couldn't find one that would work very well with what you're trying to create. I would try to start with working with systems that are already somewhat doing what you're doing. Like, I would stick with a modern setting for your magical school world there, right? And your magical earth. But, once you've learned your way around systems, there's only so many different ways that they can work. And then you can work on designing your own systems like the Ethnos clan is doing, or like Topland is doing, right? So these are things that you can do. And if you're not happy with that, but you really want to write, stop worrying about novels, right? Concentrate on one little story, right? Something like, okay, so it's Annabelle's first day at the magical school. What happens to her, right? And that, and keep it more limited. And then with a shorter word count goal, you can finish it. Right? Author Goddess is lurking, but muted for game. That is totally cool. Good to see you, Author Goddess. Okay. I see people are tiger tackling each other in the chat, which is always fun. Twinkletoes says, I always have more plot than world building 90% of the time. I'm trying to fix that, but it's hard sometimes. Yeah. I mean, if you started with the world, maybe the world is the idea. What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. That's cool, right? Twinkle also says writing short stories are valid. Yes, they are. Yeah, is valid, but yeah, right, yeah, because you said my grammar is confused. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have noticed, actually. Not in chat, but yeah, right? Writing short stories is valid. Hey, Daz, good to see you. When you're trying to come up with a short story, think about kind of a limited dilemma, right? Something that would be a single plot point in a novel is probably a story, right? So, and this has been, because I was never very good at short stories. I tend to think of things in epics, right? But that was helpful to me because I was trying to make a name for myself in the short story market so that people would know who I was when I put my book out, right? At least they'd have heard of me somewhere, right? I think I've kind of got that now among a limited group of science fiction writers and readers. So, it should work, I hope, but... Yeah, also, I still don't know what is my genre, says Kalyatami, so thank you. I hope I was of some help. Okay, Magical Earth, I would call urban fantasy, maybe with a touch of magical realism, right? That is what I would call it, depending on how heavy you get into the fantasy parts, right? So, and tone, right? Tone is important too. Go back to your world meta. Have you done the agile world building exercise stuff? Have you filled out your world meta? Right? Because actually that is very, very helpful. I haven't done it yet on the official world meta page because I've already done it in my head, right? So it's a matter of, I hate putting down stuff I've already planned or things where I've partially written it elsewhere. So it's a matter of finding the, desire to do that. But it's not like I haven't done it, right? I followed all the points and I have the information. You filled the meta. Okay. So what did you say about your tone okay, the one I know best of your worlds is Magical Earth. Right? So thinking of Magical Earth, what is the tone are you like, is it a more gritty tone, right? Do people have struggles that are, like, is death close to hand? Is very little upward mobility and social class, right? Are you likely to get into street fights? How hungry are people? Is it a serious sort of perspective, or is it more fun, right? Is it more like, you know, it's our world, but better because we have magic, right? So magic helps them to solve problems rather than creating problems in and of itself, right? Okay, I try to make it feel like the real world, but with magic, so it is somewhere in between. In that case, I would definitely stick with urban fantasy. That is the tone that you're going for, right? So that's the genre I would call it myself. If I picked up a book and I read your synopsis of your world on the book cover for the series, I would not be at all surprised to call it urban fantasy, right? So, okay, so urban fantasy is fantastical and it does some wondrous things, but ultimately there's a grounded sense to it, right? People still have to pay the bills, right? People still have to go to work, right? There, you know, kids still struggle in school, people drive probably, you know, and having magic doesn't, it sometimes solves problems, but sometimes creates problems, right? As I said earlier, my problem with knowing which genre I like to write, not defining the genre of the world. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Am I up to showcases today, Daz? Yes, I am. Yes, we will do showcases today. Right. Emily agrees with urban fantasy. Okay, so if you're looking for what genre you like to write, here's my question. What do you read? Because that's what you're gonna like to write. You know, what are your favorite books? Give me your top 5 favorite books. And I'll tell you what genre you should look at. I think I'm pretty good at this, so do it. Let's do it. Come on. Challenge me. Magical fidget spinner. Okay, I will put that up and get it ready. And I believe Daz will have a showcase too. We'll stick with 3 in the queue for the moment. Perfect. Wheel of Wandering item. Does it have to be 5? Says James. Nope. Just give me a couple of your favorite books. No more than 5. Let's say that. The more books you give me, though, the better off I will. The more information I will have to suggest what genre you should probably write in. So. I like your loud box, by the way, there, Twinkle. That looks really cool. The gradient of green looks very nice. Okay. Unfortunately, recently I was reading mostly for my studies, so archaeological and historical books. Didn't really have time to read fiction, but I enjoy Witcher. Okay, Witcher, the Poppy War. All right. Yes. Amelie has a point. You don't have to lock yourself into one genre. You can write in other genres too, right? There's always another story that can be done, right? So you can have fun with one, and then you can have fun with another, and then you can have fun with another. That's why I insist on calling myself a science fiction and fantasy writer, because I write in both genres, and in a wide range of subgenres of those genres. Generally, the only thing that my stories have in common is that there's something that doesn't currently happen in the world that we are familiar with. There you go. That's it. Right? So it would not be out of place for me to say, okay, I have not read Truth Witch, so I can't address that one, but okay, James says, here's my 5. City of Ember, People of Sparks, The Power of 5, The Hunger Games, The Mockingjay. All right, a young adult dystopian, or new adult dystopian. That's your thing, right? Post-apocalyptic dystopian, if you want to be more specific, right? clearly you really like that juxtaposition between the optimism of youth and the, you know, kind of a shit-tastic world that they have to change, right? And that's awesome. That's awesome. Truth Witch is fantasy classic, okay. And it's really good. I haven't read it, so I will look for it. But alright. So far, it sounds to me like you've generally got some pretty gritty fantasy going on there, right? The Witcher is known to be a particularly dark fantasy, right? The Poppy War engages in some, you know, really tense real-world issues and looks at them within a fantasy setting, right? So, right. Sable got it in one and my mother didn't know why I was cheating. Those are all good books. I enjoy them too. I like dystopians, especially post-apocalyptic dystopians. I read a lot of that kind of stuff, which is why I was ready for the pandemic. It was no surprise to me. People were like, wear your mask. I was doing that like 3 weeks before anybody said anything. The Witcher is dark, says DM Stretch. Yeah, DM Stretch likes Warhammer 40k, which makes no sense, by the way. It's fun, but it makes no sense, right? Alright, James is lurking for his bath. Okay, English translated by Susan Denard. Okay, I will totally look for it. Okay. But yeah, yeah, that's another good point. Amelie says you seem to also like historical settings. So dark historical fantasy is kind of your thing. Okay, okay. I can work with that. I can work with that. All right. So, no, it doesn't, Stretch. No, it doesn't. Stretch says 40k makes more sense once you get into the deeper lore. Things get explained later. The history is consistent. I will say that, right? I don't dislike it, don't get me wrong. I think it's great fun, right? It's just that a universe and a culture that had been at war for that long would be gone, right? Because food, people have to eat. You have to grow things, right? Even if you don't have farming anymore and you have like cloning, right? Then you're still gonna need energy to do that. Yeah, must admit 40k is not for everyone. And in order to maintain those kind of infrastructures, you need to have stability. I suppose that a god emperor is the only way in this setting in which humanity could have any kind of stability. But everything you hear about the lore tells you that there is no stability. It breaks down. Oh, hello, Esong. Good to see you. And hello, Bob. Good to see you, too. Snuck in while I was yapping, I guess. Corpse starch, eh? I also like Narnia, but only watched the movies. Okay? I also read and enjoyed The History Keepers, a trilogy about time traveling guardians of history. Yes, because that was your other world, right? It was kind of a, excuse me, a time traveler world. Okay. Okay. So I would say that, yes. Okay, Narnia is generally called high fantasy, and it's called portal fantasy, right? Portal being, you know, you go to an alternate world, right? And it has things in common with Earth, but there are things that are very different. And one thing that C.S. Lewis does very well, right, is that he draws upon a lot of, you know, British folklore in order to make The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe work, right? So it has pseudo-historical authenticity that a portal fantasy, well, other portal fantasies that I've read, usually later ones, don't. Right? So. Okay. Yapping is good, brings a smile to the face and it feeds the soul. We're trying to help Kayutan nail down the genre that he prefers. And I said, give me your 5 favorite novels and I'll tell you what genre you would prefer to write in. Yeah. Daz said something and I missed it. I saw that she said something. There it is. I write high adventure fantasy more than epic fantasy, but I read Dresden Files, Safehold series, Honor Harrington, and all Salvatore. Sounds like we're into very similar stuff. I'm sure that this toy soldier shit is totally your meat and drink, isn't it? Yeah, because, yeah, that's, see, you know, what do I read, right? Okay, so my top favorite novels, if I thought about it, were Watership Down is my favorite novel of all time. Mm-hmm. Remains so, it's the one I've read more than any other novel, right? I like the Vorkosigan Saga. I like the Honorverse. And yeah, you can cheat, give me series, I don't care. Let's see, some of my other favorite, Lord of the Rings. I was very much fan of Lord of the Rings. I've read that several times. I really liked a novel called The Forever War. That was by Haldeman, Joe Haldeman. Yeah, and Narnia, of course, is a classic, and, you know, Game of Thrones, right? A Song of Ice and Fire. Clearly, I like to read epics, right? Epics are my thing. Epic fantasy, epic science fiction. I like space opera. I like planetary romance. I like, you know, gritty epic fantasy. I don't want something, though, where everything is just magically fine. Right? Obviously, I don't read a lot of that. Right? I read stuff where magic creates as many problems as it solves. So, yeah. Twinkle Toes says, let me see, for me, literally anything by Robin McKinley, awesome. The Dresden Files, okay, I see that. I see those influences there. The Enchanted Forest Chronicles. Oh my god, that's great. You know what? I thought of all of those listening to Reaper, actually. I was like, you know, like, because it started off with that whole tone of, I'm bringing you into an enchanted place. And then, oh, look, there's, like, crappy shit going on in the enchanted place. Actually, there were a couple of significant tone changes as the story evolved, right? Which I found very interesting, right? And they worked, right? They shouldn't have worked. This is one of those things, right? If you had gone to someone that, you know, like an agent, for example, they would have told you this idea would not work if you laid out the idea and how it would develop, but it does. It works. So that is what the benefit of independent fiction is, by the way. Because publishers want to produce a product that makes money. Right? It's a bottom line thing, right? They like good literature. I keep emphasizing this. They do love books. They want to share them, but they think they know what sells and what doesn't. Independent fiction will try things. Corporate run fiction will not. So, yeah, in 40K Imperium, the basic food is a protein mix made from corpses. Anyway, need to pop the shop. Yeah, I know that. It's Silent Green is people. Well, there's no shortage, right? Okay. Emily says, mine is high fantasy with romance subplot, similar to Daughter of the Empire by Raymond Feist and Jenny Wirtz, right? Or Jenny Wirtz, isn't it? Yeah. I haven't read it, but I've seen it. So, okay, I have different worlds I play with: alternate historical France, portal fantasy, or high fantasy. Awesome. Yep. So, it all kind of overlaps there. Yeah. Daz says I read everything. Mystery, westerns, old sci-fi, new sci-fi, Feist, Brust, Weber, Butcher, Salvatore, Britain. Awesome. Yeah, and you'll get into, like, all of those elements will develop in your own writing. I believe the more widely spread your reading tastes, like, I read a lot of mysteries too, or at least I used to, right? I have a guilty pleasure for good whodunits. I like, I was really into, like, there were these Norwegian mysteries I was really into a few years ago, right? And Westerns. I read a lot of those. You know, I used to read a shit ton of them as a kid, and I love a good spaghetti Western, and I keep coming back to them, and I suppose that's why I have a weird Westworld, right? Hey, Dillian, good to see you. Welcome. I need to watch Watership Down on Netflix. There's a Watership Down on Netflix? Holy shit. Okay, I'm in. I just got here after reading the first chapter of Return of the King, says Dillian. Talk about timing, right? Hello, Brian. Brian says, oh my god, I jumped in to hear Dresden and Enchanted Forest Chronicles, two of my favorite sets of books. That's awesome. Unless we're thinking about different Enchanted Forest Chronicles, one I know is whimsy and makes fun of fairy tales. Okay, I might know those ones. I think those might be the ones, because I read those as a kid. There was like a whole cast of animals, right, in the Enchanted Forest. Like a whole, and they all had different problems. One book would be about Badger, and another book would be about Frog, and then the other book would be about, you know, those were great. I tried agenting, can confirm it did not work. Yeah, that's what Twinkle says. Yeah, because, you know, they think they know what'll sell, right? So they're not going to take novels that deviate from that too much. So it's difficult to get something published that tries something new. Yeah, those books made me want to be a writer. I hear you, Brian. We all had that book. The book we read that went, yes, I want to do this. Okay, that's another one, Calyatan. Can I help you out with that one? What is the book you read that made you say, I want to be a writer? Let's talk more right, eh? Okay, let's finish this up and then we'll do that. But that's it. What book did you read that made you go, I want to be a writer? For me, it was Firestarter by Stephen King. That was the book that made me go, yeah, I want to do this. I was 10. Yeah. Green Rider series? Okay, yeah. And then Red Wall, yeah. Enchanted Forest Chronicles starts with a princess who runs away because being a princess is boring. No. I know for a fact that they were children's books that I'm talking about. They were awesome, but anyway. Okay, Red Wall is something else. Red Wall is awesome, but that wasn't what I was thinking of. Okay, Enchanted Forest Chronicles starts with a princess who runs away because being a princess is boring, so she volunteers to be a dragon's captured princess. That sounds like a cool thing. Yes. Twinkle. Yes. The book that really made me want to be a writer, without question, was The Hero and the Crown by Robin McKinley, rather. Yeah, I was 12. So was I. And I read that book, and I was like, yeah. And why are girls never the action heroes in the fantasy novels? There's no reason we can't be. That was revelation for me. Calyatan says it wasn't a book, it was a movie. Some years ago, I rewatched Narnia, and it made me want to write. Okay. Maybe you want to be writing screenplays and not stories. And there's a totally different way to script write. That's a completely different style. Calyatan, talk to James. James, help the man out. Show him how script writing is done. Right? Brian, do you script write too? Because I thought you may have known something about that. I seem to think that. Oh, awesome! Song says, I love your article on women in history and our perceptions that we perpetuate in our writing and the reality. We do. But we need to create more of it in fiction. Oh, the Alan Dean Foster series called Pip and Flakes. Yeah, that was a good series. I like that too. Yeah. Patricia C. Word, I know the name, but I don't know how to pronounce the last name, is the author of the Enchanted Forest Chronicles. Definitely check them out. Okay, well, I've definitely heard of her, and I will. I will do that. Dealing says, I think mine was an Estonian book that I read as a kid called Tasua Avenger, which is a book set during St. George's Night Uprising in 1343 to 1345. Well, that explains a lot. I tried script writing, it isn't for me, says Kajitan. Stage plays. Twinkle does some script writing. Well, okay. Okay, so my suggestion then, at this point, Kajitan, is maybe you really should watch some stuff on the craft of writing. Some of the basic stuff, right? Like, it's always good to review if you already know, and if you don't know, it can help you. There are actually videos out there to help you improve your writing. You can pay for courses for this, or you can, or you can just do it, right? With stuff on YouTube. Brandon Sanderson has some excellent stuff on his channel. Hello Future Me has a lot of useful stuff too, right? And you can get a feel for things like how to construct a plot, right? What makes a story work? How how characters stick with you, stuff like that. And that's also a good one too. Maybe you're thinking about it too hard. Esong says, have you tried just writing and discovering what genre appears? Kind of like how pantsers have to write to discover their plot. You might need to do that to discover your genre. Yep, if you can find it in Poland, there is a book, No Plot, No Problem, that might help you. That is the book that is written by the guy who founded NaNoWriMo, and it is very helpful. Yeah, lots of other people echoing my recommendation for Sanderson. Yeah. Okay, he doesn't think that's the problem. Fair enough. I think Esong might have a point, though. Maybe you're overthinking it. Maybe you should just write and see what happens. You could try dictating it. If maybe the problem is the translation between, maybe it's a pepcac error, right? It's between user and keyboard, right? Try dictating it and see if it, you can get past the block that way. Oh, yeah, and you also might need to just spend some time writing and failing, says Twinkle. Yep, I spent 20 years trying to learn to write, and then I finally did it. I've written since I was 10 years old, and I meant it, right? But the first novel I have that I ever finished was A Few Good Elves. And I did that a little over 10 years ago. I'm 45. Okay, gang, we are going to go to a sprint because Kajitan told me to get on with it. And then after that, we are going to look at a couple showcases. I am working on, or I thought I might start the item challenge today. Mainly because I think this art is awesome and I'd love to have an image done of this art. Now, right. Sorry, I was distracted because I was listening to what Jamie was saying out there because I know he just got off the phone with my mother. He probably said, "Are you coming to get the boxes?" Nope, not today. Have to be done tomorrow. Okay, this is the article I would have gotten him to make something for. But I already did this one. Okay. So I'm going to create the counterpart to this. There actually is one, and it's called the Crown of the Earth. Oh cool, I've got one for this prompt. I should start a stub just so that it's on the record. I'm going to do that just to have it. This is a character article. Okay. Lyris and Verbena. Do that immediately. There. Draft created. Now. Wait a minute. I think I actually have to do that challenge from the page anyway, don't I? This prompt page. Oh ho! Okay, write this prompt. Crown of the Earth. What did I classify my crown of the stars as? A unique artifact. Yes, okay. So unique artifact is an option. Gotcha. We'll just move that baby over here. Oh, I already started that prompt. Shit. Okay, I better go back and delete that item. I'll go into... because I probably created it as a stub. I've got absolutely nothing on this, so good stuff. I only got one. Okay, that's what I want. Where's my map of known space? I don't want to go to my home page. That's what I want. You know, I gotta say, World Anvil's got some good Google presence right there. Damn it. Okay, expect things to creak and groan for a minute, gang. I was trying to avoid this page because I have my Twitter, or my Twitch channel up here, and every time I try to do that on stream, it goes, gah! And I can't handle it, so... Map of known space. Oh, I've only got 2 minutes left to the sprint, do I? And that's the sprint. Alright, how'd you do, gang? Daz is all excited about my item. Twinkle says, I'm going to attempt to write 3K today. I want to finish this chapter and write another one after, because I have a 2100 word monster to fight on For the Words. Good luck! Excellent! Daz says, I love that shiny big crown. It's a pretty cool pic, isn't it? I'm lucky that I found a couple of pictures that worked really well together to make this. This is actually two public domain images, one of a galaxy and the other of a jeweled crown that I kind of mashed together for this purpose, right? And then I put lens flares in each of the gems to make it look like they were filled with stars, which is the point. So, yeah, this is the what I'm working on today is like, it's a living crown made of like growing green things, right? And they change depending on the season and on the world that you happen to be on. But not all at once, right? They don't just go and it's magically all like a local plant, right? You know, some of the leaves of the old plant will die off and a new sprout will show up, and then there's like, you know, a flower blooms here, you know, yeah, right? So I mean, obviously, the art piece, if I were to happen to win the challenge, would not be possible to draw in any one configuration. So if I decide to make a sketch too, it will work just as well. Depends on what world they're on, right? Okay. Twinkle, yeah, okay, I already answered that. Twinkle says, trying to think of how to words, needs, must, more coffee. 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 The fuel of life and brighter brain. Daz is just going to sprint, chill, and chat as she burned up finishing her item article and has done some edits to it. Awesome. And we're looking at your guys' item articles today, right? So that's great. I'm looking forward to it. James is back. Welcome back. Awesome. Daz says, I miss the evil pumpkin that I had steal your chapter emote. I loved making that emoji story. That is hilarious. I'm sure they'll do it again this year, and I think it's funny as hell, and I hope we can do it for sure. Now Daz has squirrels steal my chapter. Yes, this is what's going on now. There are squirrels. They're running away with my book. And hiding it with a frog, I think, is the plan here. I love your emotes, Daz. They're hilarious. Oh, hail hydrate. Thank you. You know that writing is hard, GIF? That. It is. It really is. I must say it's amazing how much writing I can do when I don't have work getting in the way, says Daz. I hear you there. I had 3 days of absolute dry brain because of all the stress going on between my mother moving and being so pissed off at Twitch and, you know, worrying about my career. And by the way, my fucking Visa card, which expires tomorrow, still hasn't shown up yet. Let's sigh. Because the mail is delayed, you know, I guess. Twinkle says I probably need some time to let the coffee do a little more on me. I can feel my dopamine receptors sleeping up the dopamine released by the coffee. I hear that. Insert Inception sound here. Yep. Ooh, 2 places at once. Yeah. Yeah, at least it's muted, says Kalyatan. Toblin always gets irritated that when he goes to the homepage, audio is double and he has to mute it. Twinkle's gonna write during the next sprint. Well, during the next sprint, I'm gonna read your articles here. Both of them if I can get away with it. Brian says, desperately trying to finish for my game tonight, planning. Yeah, fair enough. And Daz will make a news story. And DM stretches back. So I have caught up on the chat. Let's read the first showcase, which is fixation gyration. Item type, magical. This is Twinkle's article. There's the link. Item magical, current holder Zaza. Neat name. Rarity, uncommon. They are crafted and donated to those who need them as magical foci. Oh, that's cool. Okay. Weight 3 ounces. Dimensions 3-inch diameter. Raw materials and components. The outer workings, you need an S there, are constantly made from different metals, or consistently made from different metals, often gemstone or metal, but the inner workings are consistent. Right? And this is bearing basic parts of a bearing explained. Right, shield, inner race, balls, rotator, outer race. Got it. You know, that's the first time I've ever actually understood how that fucking works. Okay. A focusing tool. Oh, no. That's a fixation gyration. Whoever she is, she's a magic user. Grandmother Riku speaking about Zaza. A focusing tool. Often sought but rarely given, this is a magical focus specifically made and meant for magic users with conditions that make focus hard. Common among magic users in the ADHD and autism communities, stimming with one of these will provide the mental focus required to do magic in a controlled fashion. May I recommend, by the way, is this a variation of our world here, Twinkle? Or is this, because I think I recognize this is the Bardford Tales, right? Something for ADHD and autistics. Great, says Kalyatan. I agree completely. Okay, the reason why I'm asking is that it's an urban fantasy, yes, so magical herb. Okay. People may not know what stimming means. I know what stimming means because I am neurodivergent, so I know what that means, right? Other people may not know what that means. You might want to put it in quotation marks and explain it, or put a tooltip on it. Actually, there we go, tooltip. That's all. That's the only reason why I'm asking, because I don't think that they've put this word in dictionary.com yet, have they? They may have. Dictionary.com tends to be pretty up on this stuff. No. Okay. So chances are, unless you're connected to the neurodivergent community, you don't know what that means. So yeah, tooltip. Okay. But useful. Yeah. Stimming with one of these will provide the mental focus required to do magic in a controlled fashion. Without this focusing tool, magic users with ADHD, autism, and other similar mental or physical conditions are still capable of magic, but the effects can be erratic. A simple match spell can burn down a house. As such, these magical tools are given freely to those who need them, often before the magic user knows they need one. Sounds practical. Yep. Can you imagine ADD people doing magic? I say, drinking my coffee. Okay. That was a Letitia Adams sip there, by the way. Okay, mechanics and inner workings. The outer workings are variant depending upon the person and their personal magical focus. That's a bit clumsy, that sentence. It's a little confusing. The outer workings vary depending upon the person and their individual magical focus, maybe. Zaza, for example, uses a copper fixation gyration. That makes sense. Copper is traditionally a metal that conducts magic, by the way. Basically, if it's a good electricity conductor, it's a good magic conductor. Right? If it's a good shield against energy, it shields against magic. Right? Like lead. Right? Also gold can be used in that manner, depending. Right? You know, and then other things like silver, you know, they conduct magic, but they also store magic, right? Okay. That's traditional, like, witchcraft, ritual magic stuff. It just, you know. Others may need one made from amethyst, tiger's eye, or any other gem or metal. Yeah, that makes sense too. Some people have individual affiliations to different types of crystals and semi-precious and precious gems, so that makes sense. The inner workings are standard to the non-magical variant, known among mundanes as fidget spinners, and can be found in the sidebar under raw components. Yeah. Yeah, manufacturing process. These are individually crafted from carved gemstones, usually lab-grown, or metals that have been forged into the right shape. Built into the fixation gyration along with the inner bearings is a small spell of enhanced focus. Ah, okay. This spell enhances the focus ability of the user when the magic user, period. I think you need to revisit that sentence, because that's not a sentence. When the magic user does what? When the magic user concentrates? Perhaps? Okay, the spell enhances the focus ability of the user when the magic user concentrates. And I don't think you need this. If they are focused on something, that focus is enhanced while the fixation gyration is in use. If you're going to include the previous sentence, which is, this spell enhances the focus ability of the user when the magic user, I don't know, focuses, obviously. And then, period. That focus is enhanced while the fixation gyration is in use. Right? When the focus is broken, the spell goes dormant until it is called into use again. We don't need this because it's redundant. Right? We assume that if you use it when you focus, then you're talking about that focus being enhanced. We don't need to refer to it again, right? Okay, significance. The carrier of a fixation gyration is always a person of neurodiverse origins, often a person with ADHD and or autism. What about other forms of neurodiversity, right? What about anxiety disorders, PTSD, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, right? These are all in the neurodivergent group too. Does it have any effect for them? Right? Okay. I ask because, you know, obviously this affects me, this affects Aaron, right? And I'm like, I like the idea of magic-focused stuff for us. This is good. We're not mentioned, you know. And we don't have to be. I'm just wondering if it has a different effect or if it's the same effect, right? For example, does it ease anxiety for people who suffer from anxiety disorders, right? You mentioned that you have anxiety medication, so you and I both suffer from anxiety disorders. Would it help us in that respect? Yeah. So, yes, it does. I was struggling when I was writing the article with what other disorders? Ah, okay. Cool. Well then, I probably have just helped make some suggestions, right? So, yeah, right? Does it help a person with a disorder like schizophrenia that makes reality somewhat fluid, right, to focus on the current reality as other people perceive it, right? Because that could be a really important thing. Like, Aaron will talk to you about schizophrenia if you'd like to understand it more, because he's very open about his experience with it. But, so I'm speaking from what I've heard from him, right? But things like, you know, he'll be driving along, you know, he's doing this thing, and all of a sudden there's a spider walking across the hood of the car, right? And it's big, it's about this size, right? And, you know, or, you know, more common than not, you hear voices that sound like a radio turned down low, so you can, you know, you can't quite hear what they have to say, right? But every now and then you catch a couple words. That is a pretty consistent auditory hallucination that a lot of people with schizophrenia experience, right? Does it help you to shut that shit out so you can concentrate on, like, the, you know, the reality that other people see? Right? Oh. Okay, wait a minute. Are we having a debate about autism here? And whether or not it requires a cure? He sounds like, as an ADHD person, my magic usage would be fabulous and erratic and distracting and squirrel! Can relate. Okay. Stimming is on Wikipedia. That's useful. Good to know. Okay, I'm just gonna catch up on stuff here. Neurodivergence of the world unite. That's right. Word condition next to autism sounds wrong, strange, but I forgive you. Conditions don't necessarily require cures. They're just conditions. Right? I agree, by the way. I you know, what is required is whatever the person who is affected needs to be able to function and live a full life in this world, right? So whatever that may be, right? So I don't necessarily think that it needs a cure either. A lot of my friends, most of my friends and the people that I'm close to are neurodivergent because I am neurodivergent and I think like they do. So, or I think in ways that they are more forgiving of because they think differently, right, as well. And we need those people because, well, for one thing, if people had frickin' listened to me about politics 5 years ago, things would be very different. Okay. Anyway, yeah, but seriously, sometimes people who are neurodivergent see shit that people who are not don't, and or are highly creative and come up with things that a lot of... It's not to say that people who aren't neurodivergent can't. It's that there's a certain... Like, it seems to be pretty common among neurodivergent people. So that can be really handy, right? So clearly there's a point to it in human evolution, right? It's one of the ways in which we function as a species. So Emily says, I'm doing the same thing instinctively with magic and electricity conductors, my chemistry background. Sorry, I got distracted here. But I was right at the end. I'll add some stuff to the article. This is all super useful. Awesome. Yeah, Kayetan and James were both agreeing that, yeah, we don't think it needs a cure. Sadly, politicians only hear money. E-Song says, sometimes I think that the only neurotypical people are the people you don't know well. You have a point there. You have a point there. Huh. Well, there's certainly representation among our community, I'll tell you that. Alright. Yeah, okay, so if they're focused on... Okay, if that focus is enhanced while the fixation gyration is in use, when the focus is broken, the spell goes dormant until it is called into use again. Significance. The carrier of a fixation gyration is always a person with neurodiverse origins. I did read that. Often a person with ADHD or autism. It is not uncommon for anyone with an inability to focus, mental or physical, to be gifted one. Yeah, for someone with this, like, fidget spinners are often recommended for people with anxiety disorders because the stimming helps you calm down, because it gives you something for the weasel rats in your head that are running the crazy loop there to stop doing and get curious about. They can go run that loop over here making the fidget spinner work, right? And then that way they're not going to run over the loop about, well, what if this and what if that and what if the other thing, and you're doing something wrong, you know? Yeah. This is great. I will watch this with great interest. I think this is a marvelous idea. Do you have any thoughts about the nature of the component of the spell? Oh, and that's the sprint. If you were sprinting. And if you are sprinting, tell us what you're working on and how you're doing. Yeah, that's great. I'm very intrigued by this idea. I think it's excellent. So then the question is, since fidget spinners have only existed for a short period of time, what did magical people do before we had them? Did they use mood stones, maybe? You know what those are, right? The thumb stones. You got like a little flat stone, you rub your thumb on it, and it's the soothing, repetitive, stimming movement is like helpful, because those were really popular a few years ago. And then, of course, there's crystal balls. I suppose you could be doing that, right? Have you ever done that with a crystal ball, by the way? Just, it's so nice. Okay. Oh my god. No, Daz, nobody's saying that. Kayetan says, and I'm autistic, Asperger's, so my opinion should be the most important in that case. Dude, you think you're alone here? Right? You're not the only person with Asperger's in this audience, I am sure. Right? I may have Asperger's. This is something that has been looked at, or at least that is being considered. And it might also be central post-traumatic stress disorder. Hard to tell, right? So my nephew has Asperger's. That's a diagnosis. You know, yeah, like, I don't know about anybody in the audience, but I am sure I've seen that before. There's probably no shortage in the community, man. No, Daz, nobody's saying you're lumped in with Trump. No, all I was saying is that my brain works differently than most people I know. And one of the ways in which it works is that I tend to be very good at reading trends and going, okay, this looks a lot like this historical pattern over here that I read about in history class. So that inevitably led to this horrific outcome. We probably should not do the thing we're currently doing, or we're going to end up with X horrific outcome, right? You know, and this affects my life from everything, but okay, I remember the last time the car made this noise, it meant that the alternator was dying. We need to get the alternator replaced. Yeah, and then what? The alternator dies, right? You know? Okay. Esong is still working on her presentation data, which she quite well should be. Twinkle says, I haven't thought too hard about how the spell works. Okay. You might potentially use the ball bearings in the gear as focus stones, right? Like have them be made of a metal that helps to create focus. I don't know, just a thought. James says 2 articles with tags included. Esong has now input 2,422 coral words. Oh, if I refresh the page, you've made a couple changes, including the tooltip. That's awesome. Yep, there it is. The repetition of physical movement, sounds, words, and moving objects. Yes, brilliant. I stim a lot, actually. You want to know? here's a secret thing, right? If I were to tip my camera down here, probably about 90% of the time, you would see me rubbing the tops of my thighs, right? I do that a lot. Oh. Yeah. I was trying to world build, but chat distracted me, says Cayetan. I think I want to go to a break timer here, gang. So I will catch up. On the chat. Yeah, it's a big chat. Okay. Yeah. They still diagnose Asperger's on your side of the ocean. I thought they abandoned the term. They may have in recent years, but, you know, I'm 45, right? So I remember that Asperger's was a diagnosis for my nephew when he was in school. He's not anymore. Okay, I'm going to put the break timer up, gang, because I've got to take a bio. I will see you in a few minutes. As always, please feel free to use it as a sprint break. I will be doing the same thing. See you in a minute. I am back and working in the background for all of the 2 minutes I have left of this sprint, which I am disappointed about. Alright, and that is the sprint. I agree with you guys. I like our community too. I don't understand at all why people just want to give each other grief. There's no point. Yes, and I agree with that too, Daz. I also like how we can disagree on things and debate instead of just going into the fighting, hating crap. Debating our differences is so important. I agree. I don't have to agree with everything you say or think in order to like you. Just if you have an opinion that calls into question my identity, just don't tell me. And treat me with respect, and then we'll get along fine. What you think is none of my business. Right? What you think about me, how you treat me is, right? Alright, so I'm going to try to get some highlights of the chat here rather than read everything. Someone says, what if I think you're pretty swell? Well, that's nice, and thank you for saying so, but I wouldn't know unless you said it, right? Because that's what you think, right? So that's, as long as you're treating me with respect, if you disagree with some of my decisions, I will never know, right? But thank you for telling me. That's a way of treating me nicely, because you're letting me know you think I'm pretty swell. I think you're pretty awesome too, so this is great. This is great. Huh. What was that term you used the other day there? Dan Stretch, you posted a link where, certain sounds or noises just drive people insane. Esong might want that term, because apparently she didn't like the noise of fidget spinners. Like, they have a sound that just drives her crazy. So... yeah, Brian works for somebody with Asperger's or Aspies, or, autism spectrum, as they sometimes call it. Which is legit, James has it too. I believe I remembered you saying that, actually. Twinkle says, I'm probably autistic on one scale or another. I have no, and later on explains basically the position I'm in, right? Asperger's is really just a variant on autism anyway. I don't see why we need to have different names for the same thing. ADD and ADHD have been umbrellized under the same term too because they are the same disorder. Yep. Right, and Twinkle also says, 2 of my cousins and my nephew are both diagnosed with autism, so I wouldn't be shocked to find out I'm dealing with it too. I know I have ADHD, but I have some symptoms unaccounted for. But like Sable said, it could be PTSD. I've been diagnosed with PTSD in the past. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I am. I've got these symptoms that are either autistic spectrum or are central post-traumatic stress disorder. And there is no diagnosis because A, everyone says, oh, you're doing fine, you're coping so well, right? And B, it's kind of impossible to parse, right? Which is why I really love the neurodivergent description, right? Because I can say that and I don't have to decide which of those it is, right? You're aware that there's something that, you know, is different about the way I approach things. And that's good enough for me, right? I love that because it's an all-encompassing kind of thing where we don't have to parse the labels. It's as good as LGBTQIA and it's easier to say. Stretch says misphonia for sounds and misokinesia for visual stuff. So misophonia might be the problem there, Esong. I had not heard of it until Stretch told me about it the other week. But I am certain that this is a problem that my partner Jamie suffers from. Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize that Dr. Asperger was a Nazi. But, well, was he associated with those damn eugenicists? Oops, 1 second. Alright, back to the sprint timer here. It is 3 o'clock. So I am going to look at the Wheel of Wandering item, which is Daz's challenge article. Yay, your face again. Yeah, I just keep the timers running, right? Uh-huh, that would explain it. Yes, Asperger took part in the euthanasia and eugenics program. That brand of science is particularly troublesome because we learned a great deal about humanity about it. There's a track on this one that you don't like, James? That raises your anxiety? Aw, man. This is like one of my best tracks. Pooey. Okay, I will trade to the Club Flux tracks instead for now. I like these ones if they're kind of like a moog beat almost. I find them both relaxing and stimulating, so I'll try that one. But I don't think I can stay away from that one entirely because I already have to stay away from the other shipboard one because that Morse code sounding bit in it drives people insane, right? Like you and also Solar Cat, right? And I'm sure that if it bothers you guys, it bothers someone else. So I try not to run that one. Okay. Okay, so there is Daz's article. Wheel of Wandering. Haha. These things appear at the beginning of your article title too, the icons? I didn't know that. I'm in the process of putting icons on my thingy, so... Wheel of Wandering. Yeah, this exquisitely, you need an X between the E and the Q. Crafted ship's wheel is 2 feet across. Once mounted on a vessel that has a magical spine that runs the length of its keel, Okay. The Wheel of Wandering draws out the power of the spine. Its gears then convert that power into various magical effects. Okay. So you lay like a wire or a cable. There is currently only one Wheel of Wandering, though other gnomes have taken up the challenge of crafting their own. This has led to daring gnome expeditions into ancient places in giant lands in search of more magical parts that might still exist. Neat. The workings. That's a great picture. The Wheel of Wandering contains 6 mystical gears within its hub. As a whole, they provide the gosling the ability to levitate and sail the skies. On water, it can move against the current without oars or sail, though at a slower pace than either. Each gear can be activated to provide additional magical effects once per day. The gears. Chrono Gear. This gear allows the gosling to speed through time for a moment, doubling the distance it can travel during that moment. Loop Gear. This gear allows the gosling to become a faded blur, making it possible to hide on open water and frustrate the aim of enemy weapons. Neat. Fear Gear. This gear allows the gosling to teleport to a place it has been before. Roto Gear. This gear, you have an S there you don't need, provides the gosling with a magical shield of force for a short while. I would say for a limited time. Type Gear. This gear creates an illusion that shows a map of the area it is in. I would say it is. That's the it's possessive you've got there, and you want the it contraction for it is, which means it needs an apostrophe. But I would say it is in because it is it's more clear, right? This gear creates an illusion that shows a map of the area it is in out to 10 miles and points out the best routes for the gosling to take by water or air. Star Gear. This gear aims an attack against another ship that alters gravity around it, making it sink down or rise up by 100 feet for a short time. Neat. Now we read the rest of the article. Fox Fairchild stared at the page in Grandfather's journal, too stunned to realize his jaw had dropped so open that, I think you need that there, his toad familiar, Hoodwink, could have jumped into his mouth. I like that. So that's why Grandfather always locked his fancy ship's wheel in a vaulting house whenever we took a lengthy stay, he thought. Fox looked out the cabin door to the rather plain ship's wheel currently mounted on the helm. And why Grandfather never tossed out old Moldy there, he realized. And why Grandfather never tossed out old Moldy there, he realized. With a laugh, he returned to reading Grandfather's journal. The origin. The Wheel of Wandering began during the time of the Krokentorm Empire, an empire of magical giants who ruled all the civilized world. It was during their rule that the art of golem craft came to be, and we have a tooltip, a crafted body of stone or metal, imbued with limited magics that was controlled by an enslaved soul, bound into a crystal, and compelled to carry out every order of its master. Okay, so like a genie lamp. Okay, but in a body. Okay, like golems. Alright. As the golems became more numerous and powerful, they were turned into war engines. That makes sense too. Battered wrecks and scraps could be found everywhere. It was with several of these scraps that Boki, the young goddess of magic, crafted herself a golem ship. She used this ship to secretly spread the knowledge of magic to those who were not giant kin, in direct defiance of Puliro, the god of the sun. I have a thingy on my glasses here. It's interfering with my vision. Okay, there we go. When she was done, Boki dismantled her golem ship, taking the godly bits she herself had made to hide in her domain within Godsheim. The remaining pieces, and Godsheim I assume is just the god realm, the remaining pieces, the parts she had taken from the Krokentorm golem scraps, she hid about the world. The discovery. Nearly 5,000 years later, a very curious gnome named Carillo Cregan, there we go, that's what the question was the other day, found a crystal spine fused into a single rigid piece. Utterly fascinated with the monstrously large, by no measurement, spine, I I would put this in brackets by known measurements, right? It's kind of an aside, right? If you don't want to use brackets, the long dashes might be appropriate. Okay, the monstrously large, by known measurements, spine that contained immense magical power that could not be drained. Carrillo scoured the libraries of the world. Yeah, okay. In one of those libraries, Carrillo met Themis Fairchild, a scribe from the Heim Temple, which held a massive library beneath it. This humble scribe was also an acolyte of Boki. Between them, they began to unravel the secrets of Carrillo's mysterious spine. The two learned that the spine was but one part of what had been the keel of Boki's magic ship. Further study revealed that there were gears they had to put together inside the hub of a ship's wheel. This ship's wheel would draw out the power within the spine. The gears would form the power into various magical effects. For many years they adventured looking for the gears. When the last one was found, it fell to Carrillo, and you've got an extra R there, I don't think you intended, to figure out how to assemble them in a ship's wheel they named the Wheel of Wandering. And that is a good question. I would like to know how that is assembled. Like, are they attached? Because you know how a ship's wheel works, right? You know, you drive it like that, or like this, usually, or you know. So, the turning part is at the center of the wheel, right? Like, this center bit is the bit that turns, and then there's like a piston, right? That turns here, and then there's a gear inside that goes down here, which does another gear, which shifts the keel of the rudder of the ship, right? So, like, do you have to put the gears on all those parts? And if so, wouldn't it make sense to take apart the whole assembly and lock it up? Or is it that it's directly, like, the one of the gears, the one that activates everything, is directly worked into the ship's wheel itself? Like, is this center bit there where the donut hole is that where, like, are all the gears somehow around there? And how do they turn with their cogs? I find myself wondering. I'm just, maybe I'm overthinking it. Good night, James. Can you have the relink to the article? Yes. There it is. And good night, Amelie. Sleep well. Bonsoir. Okay. Yeah, like, are they attached on the ship's wheel like a transmission, where, like, the gear is kind of physically moved so that it attaches to the right gear in the piston, right? Like, I don't know if I'm making myself clear here. I don't even know if I'm using the right word, piston. I don't think I am. Piston does that motion. What do you call it when it... So is it an internal gear, external gear pair like that? I doubt it could go together like either of these, the intersecting or parallel gears. This would probably be way too complicated, I think. Yeah, the gear shaft is what I'm thinking of. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it a bit. But I will put this. Gears are within the hub, set around the donut, and their internal turning is dependent on the turning of the wheel for steering. I'm not sure that's... It's probably not how gears typically work, I think. Right, because gears would have to be different sizes, I would think, right? Or maybe they're all in like a cylinder in there, right? Okay, but I mean, like, to get the right gear, in order to get it to turn properly when you turn the ship's wheel, you can't just, okay, I'm going to turn left and it's going to turn that gear, and I'm going to turn right and it's going to turn that gear, right? That doesn't really work. Like, either there would have to be a mechanism within the center of the wheel that's like, and the gears would have to be sorry, right, kind of lined up in a cylinder, and it could be that one, you know, it's bigger at one end and it descends into smaller gears like that, right? In which case you could kind of pull out or push in the ship's wheel to get the right gear onto the shaft, right? And that would work, right? Well, hold it properly, right, in and out, right? Or you could have like it they turned impossibly due to the magic. Okay, that works too. Anyway, if you want to examine a little bit more of it, maybe, like I said, I'm overthinking it, but there's the article I was looking at on how gears work. Do I only do showcases of articles or read other people's stories? And then he says, never mind, answered my own question. Yeah, basically, I do stories, but they should be relatively short. As you can see, doing a showcase takes somewhere between 20 minutes to half an hour. I have 3 hours in my stream, right? So, then after that I've got edit by hour, right? Edit or critique by hour. So, longer works will be done by hour. Okay, that's the sprint for those of you who are sprinting. I'm gonna get, let's see, I'm gonna see if I missed anything in the chat, and if I didn't, yeah, you write flash fiction often. Yeah, absolutely. We'll showcase them, we'll critique them, put them up. Absolutely, no problem. No problem. We probably have time for one more today. Yeah, science ethics is a tough topic. I agree with you, Brian. It's complex because there was a lot of useful science that came out of those people and their horrific experimentation, because we're never going to do it again, right? Can I turn down the music? Yes, I can. Okay, better? I keep forgetting this track is louder than the other track, and I have to turn it down farther. Anyway, like I said, I'm probably overthinking how the gears work there, Daz, but it's something you might want to give some thought to. People, you know, if you don't want to, don't. It can totally be magic. Like, maybe the magic has it so that the other gears swell up and are kind of like around the center of the wheel, and then they go in. right? Or the wheel actually has like a cylinder of gears, and they can all be the same size, right? Lined up in with the wheel going around it like that, and then you can like switch something here that causes it to decide which of the gears it is on, but then mounting it to the wheel or the gear shaft would be, well, no, I guess it'd be the same thing because the gear shaft will stay the same size regardless, as long as the hole in the middle is the same size, it should work. So, all right. Still kind of loud? Yeah. Okay. Twinkle had a good talk with his brother. It's not turning down? Oh. Is that any better? Testing 1, 2, 3, testing. Okay, sorry, can't help you then. I really don't want to be messing with my overall stream volume. I have tried that before, and the problem with that is that I always end up like forgetting to change it back. Okay, and one more from Kayetan. Okay, is that any better? I could turn it down a bit more from there. Okay, Kayetan's got an article for us to look at. How's that? Better? Gonna poof off to shower, says Twinkle, and then go to the pharmacy. Many loves and happy time zones. Happy time zone to you too, and have a great one. I don't know what people are doing tonight, but don't forget that we are doing our Toy Soldiers Pathfinder campaign tonight at 5:30, and hopefully I will see you then. And if not, I'll see you on Tuesday, I guess, at Aaron's stream, Ask an Old GM. I'll run through all the stuff when we're done again, too. Okay, so now we're into the sprint timer. Let's continue, and then we'll move on to... You know what? Yeah, and then we'll move on to Kayetan's article. Did I fire his up yet? I don't think I did, so I'm going to do that to make sure it's up. Okay, and then back to Wheel of Wandering. Now, actually, can I test something, guys? Is this any different? Because I just turned up the music on my player rather than turned down my stream volume. Did it turn up my music? I kind of want to know if I had any effect. Yeah, it changed songs. Oh, so you can't tell. Okay. All right. The catch. Fox jumped up and swore at grandfather's journal. Don't write about all the wonderful things that fancy wheel can do, grandfather, he yelled at the book. Then turn around and write that none of it is possible unless I carry out the quest in my dreams. I don't have time for a quest, dream or otherwise. Hoodwink croaked out a laugh. Fox glared at his familiar and took a deep breath before sitting back down to continue reading. The crystal spine also contains the once enslaved soul the Hrokentorm had bound into it when the spine was crafted. I would say was crafted by there. You only need the had bound once kind of thing. Yeah. Was crafted for Gollum. Boki had... I'd say Boki freed the soul, but it chose to remain within the spine and serve Boki. When Boki hid the spine, you only need the had bound once to show that it's past perfect, right? After that, you need to you can stick with regular past tense, and it's less difficult to read, right? That's why I'm kind of stumbling over that. Sorry, right? When Boki hid the spine served as an anchor for the soul to remain behind and carry on, as was the way of its species, though only in a ghostly way. A godly reward for its service to her was that... that should be part of the previous sentence. When Boki hid the spine served as an anchor for the soul to remain behind and carry on, as was the way of its species, though only in a ghostly way, a godly reward for its service to her that the spirit, who called itself Cloudfang, lovingly accepted. Or you could say, when Boki had hid the spine served as an anchor for the soul to remain behind and carry on, as was the way of its species. The spirit, who called itself Cloudfang, or this was a godly reward for its service, or a reward from Boki for her service, or for its service that the spirit who called itself Cloudfang lovingly accepted. Right, so there, yeah. I realize that was a bit confusing, but it'll make sense in the VOD, probably. When the Gosling was complete, Cloudfang visited Themis Fairchild in his dreams, exacting a price for the use of his soul anchor. The acolyte of Boki had completed his quest, though it was terribly difficult, because it should be a different tense here. This is when you're using the had, like, had been, did, do, that kind of thing, right? Okay, just a second here. I want to make sure I have the right terms. Past tenses. Yeah, past perfect. I did know what I was talking about. Okay. So, you need past perfect to show kind of like a prologue to this piece of information that I'm about to give you is this, right? But the reason why you don't need past perfect for most of this is because you are going back to, it's all the same kind of, it's the history of the item, right? So you wrote the rest of it in past continuous, right? So I'm stumbling over it. It's confusing me, that's all. I missed the craft. Okay. Okay, so I'm sorry I missed the craft. I will finish this section and then I will go back to the craft. Or does that affect my reading of it? Maybe not. I'll go back to the craft. Okay, the craft. Monstrous as the spine was, it was not big enough to serve as a keel for anything bigger than a keel boat. As Carrillo began to design a keelboat-sized version of Boki's ship, Themis convinced him to instead make it look like any other keelboat. Carrillo at first resisted and was bewildered that an acolyte of Boki would not want to honor his goddess with a replica of her ship. Themis pointed out that Boki was also the goddess of secrets. What better way to honor her than to make a keelboat that could hide itself amongst other such boats and appear unimpressive to would-be thieves? Carrillo set about crafting the gosling. When the gosling was complete, Carrillo simply gave it to Themis. In true gnome fashion, Carrillo was already fascinated with a new curiosity. You got an extra U there you don't need, and no longer cared about the Wheel of Wandering. Okay, no, it doesn't change my reading. So, yeah, just do simple past tense here for most of it. You could start with, the crystal spine also contains the once enslaved soul the Brockentorm had bound into it when the spine was crafted for a golem. Right, and then go past perfect from there. Boki freed the soul, but it chose to remain within the spine and serve Boki. When Boki hid the spine served as an anchor for the soul to remain behind and carry on, as was the way of its species, though only in a ghostly way. This was, you could also say that, a godly reward for its service to her that the spirit, who called itself Cloudfang, lovingly accepted. So that's probably what I would do. This was a godly reward. When the gosling was complete, Cloudfang visited Themis Fairchild in his dreams, exacting a price for the use of his soul anchor. The acolyte of Boki completed his quest, though it was terribly difficult. For the rest of his days, he commanded the magic of the spine with the Wheel of Wandering. With his recent death, that permission is gone. What quest will Cloudfang demand of the grandson? Only time will tell. I like it. Yeah. I think that... Yeah. Past perfect also implies that this all happened before everything else. But, you know, which is why it makes sense to have the had bound into it right here when it, you know, because we're talking about the ancient history when it was crafted for a golem, right? And then everything else should probably be past, you know, past tense, like continuous, I guess they call it, because everything else in the history is, right? And it kind of puts it in line with that. But otherwise, this is a fantastic article. I'm sorry that I seem to have fixated on a couple of points that really probably aren't that important. I really kind of like the concept. I think that makes me wonder if there's something I can adapt for my own game that wouldn't be an outright theft of your idea. It's given me ideas that churn. So that's kind of cool. I like the idea about how different gears do different things because, hey, it's a gnome. They like that kind of shit. Right? I like the image of the boat. I like the image of Cloudfang. That gives us an idea about kind of, you know, a good visual. I really like this fractal image here because that distinctly gives me an impression of them at... Oh, wait a minute. I'm an idiot, aren't I? Is this an illustration of how the gears work? And that, you know, a different one swings into place? And it kind of exists on a spirit realm? Because that's kind of cool. That makes sense. Okay. They're spiritual gears. They have no physical substance at all, is what you're saying. If that is what you're saying, that's really neat. Say that somewhere. Or if, once you have achieved the physical representation of the item, and you've attached it to the, you know, oh, they are physical gears with mystical natures. Okay. Physical things have to attach somehow. whatever. Doesn't matter, but this is neat. I like the concept that it has switches things out. That's cool. Okay, so is there like a gear shift on the wheel? Like, does it come out of the side like a steering wheel for an automatic kind of deal, or? Because that makes sense. I can totally see that, because then you go cha-chunk and the mystical gear rolls into place, or where these different things fold, one folds in, the other folds out, and now we're in that particular transmission stage. So it works like a transmission, sort of. Because that's cool. That makes sense to me. It's a matter of willing the gears to shift. Okay. Okay, I'll tell you what. My suggestion is describe this, right? Write the section from Grandfather's Diary where Grandfather is discussing the experience of doing it. Because I'm sure that my brain is not the only one that's trying to figure out how the magic works. Because, you know, fucking nerds like me exist everywhere. So this would be a way to circumvent that. And the other thing is quest. Right? May I suggest a box? Maybe an allowed box, or, you know, one of these, an extension of this kind of box here, right, on the sidebar, where you know, have a little heading and talk about what is meant by a quest, right? Like, what kind of quest? It's a quest of your dreams, but what is the definition for a sufficient quest? Like, in the interests of traveling, right, I always wanted to travel from one end of the country to the other, which I've done now, right? I've been as far as Cape Breton, and I've been to Vancouver and Vancouver Island, and that pretty much, I mean, like, I haven't been to Newfoundland though, but, you know, would that count as such a quest, right? Or would it have to be bigger, like my desire to travel the world, right? Because that's a bigger quest. Like, I don't know, right? And that's the sprint for those of you sprinting. Stretch only just remembered that he's sprinting between the two streams and has no idea what to do. He's been playing Fallout 4. Just ideas to throw out there. I love the concept, and I know what you can do. You can do some amazing shit. So, you know, this is amazing, but I think you can, you know, I think you can fill in these blanks and it'll be even more amazing, right? So that's my opinion. Other people might have different opinions. Have you started this item challenge yet, Stretch? You could try that. You could babble incoherently and add font awesome and RPG awesome icons to the directories of your world. If you're wanting to do a world building stream, this is what I've been doing over the past couple of days. I was just going to do categories, and then I started looking at the listings of things in the subdirectories of the categories when they're all articles, and I'm like, no, the little icons look so much cooler. Be more amazing? Ouch, my brain. You know, so I've been, I gave up and I've been doing it. Nope, not been doing any challenges. Okay. Deliberately, you're avoiding them because you need a break kind of deal. This one you get, like, original art for your item if you win. So I'm definitely going to throw in my hat and see what happens. Build more my comedy style one-shot while talking D&D, etc. maybe. There you go. Yeah, what happened to Thief 2? Says Daz. Watching you play Thief is kind of fun, actually. I do enjoy that. I don't watch a lot of gameplay streams, but I do kind of like that because you're funny and, you know. Oh no! Nothing but a black screen on the game, had audio but no visual. Boo! That sucks. Okay. No, that is a really cool thing. Yeah, this is Kayatan. He wants us to look at his elf species. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. But I think that, with your permission, it being 3:30, I'm going to do one more sprint where I actually work before we read the article, if that's okay. And then we will close out the last 15 minutes with the challenge. Or the challenge, or with the article, rather, the showcase. Had to just give up on the stream, says Stretch. Boo, that sucks. Yeah, back to author Brian's question. Yeah, you got flash fiction you want me to look at? That's exactly the right length. It's about the length of an article that I would showcase. So I will be quite happy to do that, right? And then, like I said, if it takes more than about half an hour, then it's edit or critique by the hour channel points, right? So, and I really don't want to edit your whole book continually if you're writing a novel. Okay, here's the deal, Kayatan. I can, and I will, but then the deal is at 15 minutes, whether I'm done or not, I stop. Will that work for you? Because I really need to do a little bit more work today, right? So I'm going to protect those 15 minutes of work. If that's cool with you, great, let's get into it. Awesome. The Dragon of Productivity is about to growl. And I know it's late in Poland, and I'm sorry. Okay. Elf. From the Effinia world here. Elves often consider themselves the wisest, most intelligent, and the oldest species of Effinia. You're missing an L in intelligent, just FYI. Typo. Right. However, it isn't completely true. In reality, elves were created at the same time as dwarves. Aha! The Elven Homeland is situated on the western and northern shores of the Tray Bay. Tray Bay, maybe? The biggest bay in the world, separated. It's separated, actually. It's a very common mistake there, right? From the long sea by the Elven Towers. Elven Towers looks like on the tooltip. Two peninsulas which create a strait connecting the bay and the sea. I have like a couple of peninsulas that form a strait and on one of the maps that I made for the cartography challenge, and I called them Hugin and Munin. Okay, the oldest elven city is Thalarion, okay? Today it is the capital of the Trajan Empire, the most powerful elven country. Cool, okay. Basic information. Anatomy. Elves are humanoid, which means that they walk in an upright position on two legs and have a pair of hands free to manipulate objects. The characteristic feature of the elves are long pointy ears. Feature of the elves. Feature is singular, so this word here after elves also needs to be singular, so is what you would say. Right? Genetics and reproduction. Elves reproduce sexually and give birth to live young. A female elf's body goes through a monthly menstrual cycle. It lasts for about 28 to 30 days. important to detail with your elves, because maybe it doesn't. It doesn't for my elves. My elves don't go through that, right? The woman is most fertile between the 10th and 13th day of the cycle. On the 14th day, ovulation occurs and an egg is released. If fertilization doesn't occur, the egg dies. A female elf's pregnancy lasts for 9 months. Do they menstruate monthly then too? I assume, because that's kind of how our biology works. And I figure that my female elves probably menstruate once every 6 months. But, there's some variation on that, just like there is in humans. Growth rate and stages. I'm not saying yours is wrong. It's awesome. It's totally cool. Just given for comparison. Childhood. An elf's childhood lasts for about 10 years after their birth. So they basically are human lifespan, it sounds like. During that time, they are under the care of their parents and generally live a carefree life. You've repeated the phrase during that time. Did you intend to? Okay, during that time, parents teach them speaking, writing, basic mathematics, and social skills. At the age of 10, an elven child goes to school where they learn more complex subjects. Adolescence and Puberty. It is generally considered that an elf becomes a teenager when they go to school at the age of 10. However, biologically, they start to mature at the age of 14. Elves are fully mature biologically at the age of 20. So, sounds like human lifespan, basically. Okay? Adulthood. Elves are encouraged to leave their parents' house. That, for the record, would be an apostrophe S. No, or actually S apostrophe, rather. Because it's a plural possessive. English is stupid. Okay, find a job and start an independent life right after school. Many of them choose to continue their studies at universities for about 3 to 5 years. Then they start a job. This stage lasts to the end of an elf life. Dietary needs and habits. Elves are omnivores with a preference for plant food. They also regularly eat human or animal products such as cheese, milk, and eggs. Elves eat meat only for special occasions such as holidays. Additional information. Geographic origin and distribution. Elves live in almost the whole world. Their homeland is the continent of Antis, but they founded colonies in Afen many years ago. Average intelligence. Elves believe that they are the wisest and most intelligent species in Affinia. This is partially true. Elves are really more intelligent than other species, but the difference isn't too big. I might say, I see what you're getting there. I would say this is partially, and there's an is missing there, which I didn't notice till just now. This is partially true. Elves on average do tend to score higher in intelligence than other sentient species, but the difference is smaller than they would lead you to believe, right? Something like that, right? Okay, civilization and culture. Major organizations. Trajan Empire. Trajan Empire is the most powerful elven country in the world. Most of its territory is around the Trae Bay, and has colonies in the southern Afen. History. The first elves appeared in the world about 10,000 years ago around the Trae Bay. Legends say that Dagda, the creator of the elves, good, borrowing Celtic stuff, appeared between the elven towers. Oh, interesting. And through her powers over life and death, she quickened the, you need an E between the N and the D in quickened, the evolution of the elven ancestors. That's interesting. Did you intend to, did you pull the name Dagda kind of out of the air, or is it influenced by the Celtic stuff? Right? No complaints, just saying the Dagda is male in the traditional Celtic literature, right? Just so you know, I don't care. You don't have to change it. I'm just telling you that in case you weren't aware, right? Danu tends to be a creative force that is a goddess, if you're looking for goddesses. I just googled Celtic deities and saw the name. Danu is a creative or creator goddess if you're looking for a goddess. That is why the traditional name for the Fae is Tuatha De Danann, right? Which means the children of Danu, right? Danu being like that, if you're interested. Or the Dagda is male. If you want to keep it with Celtic stuff, you don't have to. This is your world. There's no reason it has to be identical to Celtic literature. Nobody cares, right? I'm just letting you know because that may have been your intention. Okay. Founding of Thalarion. Founding of Thalarion was an important, or the founding, you should say in that sentence, was an important milestone in the Elven history. This was when elves started the transition. You switched the S and the I there just for the sake of typos. Sorry. Yeah, to the sedentary lifestyle. Oh, so before that they were migratory. Might want to say that somewhere else, unless you're going to put it in the sidebar somewhere or save it for the individual ethnicity articles, which you could do, right? Okay. This was when elves started the transition to the sedentary lifestyle. Thalarion became a template for most future elven cities, especially those around, and you've accidentally hit an F instead of the D in around, the Trey Bay. Contact with Antasan dwarves. About 300 years after the founding of Thalarion, an elven expedition to the mountains in the west met with the dwarves, a short, robust species living in underground cities in the mountains. Since you're just describing where they live and what they look like, and that this is fairly typical of fantasy dwarves, I wouldn't bother with that. I'd just cut that right out and wait until you have the link for the dwarves. About 300 years after the founding of Thalarion, an elven expedition to the mountains in the west met with the dwarves. And then I would describe from there, right, in a different sentence as part of the paragraph, what this meant to the elves. Because right now I don't know, right? Was this the first other sentient species that they encountered? So that could be interesting. You know, did cultural exchange influence both cultures? Did the elves borrow stuff from dwarves and dwarves borrow stuff from elves? Right? Because that could be really interesting. Northern expansion. Since the beginning of their existence, elves have been eager to explore the world. While moving north, they encountered other groups of elves. There were wood elves who kept the pre-urban lifestyle and lived in forests. In the northernmost regions, northernmost is actually one word in this context. English is stupid. There was a group of, and you need of there, Treyan elves called the Northern Elves. Alright, origin ancestry. Treyan elves, wood elves, northern elves, colonials. Treyan elves living in the eastern colonies. Lifespan 150 years. Average height, and those would be your different ethnic groups there, right? The Treyan elves, the wood elves, northern elves. Right. Lifespan 150 years. Average height 1.9 to 2 meters. Average weight 80 kilograms. Tall and thin, eh? I meant that the Treyan elves called them northern elves. Okay. Average physique. Yeah, okay, and you're confirming it for me. Elves are leaner than other species. Their bodies are generally thinner, but it doesn't mean that elves are weak. Opposite is the truth. I might just cut that sentence out entirely. I don't think you need it. I realize what you're trying to say is, in fact, the opposite is true. But you don't need it because you already say it here, and I believe in abolishing and doing away with redundancy. If you don't get the joke, abolish means to do away with. Right? And this is a mistake I see a lot in writing, and I want to help people be better writers. So, right? I have a problem with this too. This is one of the reasons why I need a chainsaw in my edits. So I'm trying to help people, right? So I would just leave it at that. Their bodies are generally thinner, but it doesn't mean that elves are weak. Elves can be stronger than most other species. Probably only some dwarves are stronger. And you've made it clear without having to add another sentence, because you're already a little bit redundant here. Elves are leaner than other species. Their bodies are generally thinner. Usually means the same thing, right? But there's enough difference, right? Because of the connotation of leaner and thinner that you can sort of get away with it, right? Leaner and thinner are synonyms. If you look them up in the thesaurus, they'll mean the same thing. But leaner tends to refer to more like muscle mass, right? And thinner can refer to bone structure, right? So I'm going, okay, I can see that and why you would use both different words, right? But I really feel like you don't need opposite is the truth, or in fact the opposite is true in there. Okay, geographic distribution, Antas, Eifin. And these both have their own articles. The continent west of the Lomf Sea and homeland of the elves, nice. And Eifin, which you haven't fully fleshed out yet. Well, this is off to a good start, Kayetan. I like your elves, I think they're interesting. I think there's some real potential here to develop them into a major commentary kind of creature, right? Like, they think they're more intelligent than everybody else and they're colonials, right? So that tells me that probably they have pissed people off in the past, and I would like to hear more about how they have accomplished that. It is Long Sea, my typical mistake. Okay, the Long Sea. Neat! Okay, actually, the sprint timer is just about done here. And I just realized that after the 5 minutes of chat, I will have 5 minutes left in the stream. And it's really important that I finish on time. So I think that I'm probably not going to do another sprint today. Yeah. On their continent. No, chat's fine. We can chat. I'm chatting. No sprint after the chat, right? Because, you know, oh, no chat then and sprint right away? Yes? Okay, we're doing it. In that case, I will quickly turn to the downtime screen. Hello! So that I can reset the timer and go. We are sprinting. Thanks, guys. And if you're going on their stretch, anytime you go up will be good, and then we can come visit you. Got 15 minutes before I'm shutting down the stream at this point. Alright. Now then. My brain is not doing this sentence today. Oh, hey, Stretch. Mark Carroll just went live, by the way. He knows what he's working on. An item first, and then moving to his one-shot. I'm mentioning it because Mark Carroll, Black Maggot, hasn't been on in a while, and if you do not feel like streaming today, then I could always raid him. But if you do, then by all means go ahead and we will raid you. And I will catch Mark Carroll on the next round. So, totally your call, especially since you've been getting ready and planning and stuff. True love of the Arcarel. I think I did an article on the Arcarel. I did. I will look that up here just to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Arcarel. Toy Soldier Saga. I apparently created the rank but didn't write anything about it. Okay. See, notice I said true love of the Arcarel. Not necessarily the person that they designated as the official, like, person who married the Arkarel. Ha 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 ha. Evil plans, evil plans. Because fuck shit up, because it's fun. That's where the story is, in fucking shit up. The true love of the Imperial Monarch. And anyone else who tries will be destroyed by the power of the crown. According to numerous myths and stories, numerous myths, and a few historical records, this has created havoc in the past, more than once, such as when a marriage for the Arkarel was politically and not romantically motivated. Can you imagine? You're chosen as the, Imperial Monarch's consort, and you marry them, and then you get destroyed by the crown because they don't really love you. That would be a fucking disaster, wouldn't it? Can you imagine the political disasters there? Muted now, and my coming soon screen is up. Excellent. So we will raid you as soon as the sprint is over. Okay, made the changes. Word count 1420 out of 1500 allowed. Phew! Right, I forgot we have a word count thing here. Okay. I don't need that. This has created havoc in the past more than once, such as when a marriage for the Arkarel was politically and not romantically motivated. It's always strange when that happens because you wonder who left and if it was intentional. Yesterday it said we had 432 followers, and today it says we have 430. I've heard it can spontaneously boot people like Twitter. I'm just wondering. Okay. Once the crown of the earth has accepted the monarch's chosen consort, they have equal authority to the archorial themselves. Equal authority to the archorial and equal claim to inheritance. And that's the sprint, gang. Rights for their offspring. And we will leave it here at the end of that sentence so we can go and raid DM Stretch. So Mark Carroll is back up and running, apparently. They are streaming today. If I'd known they were going on, I may have raided them because it's been a while since we've seen them. But he is at, I'm trying to remember the address, and I'm going to check and see if it's on the, no, it's not on the calendar. So, but I think that that is the handle. I will give it to you if you guys want to check it out. They are a writer. Well, he is a writer, and he is working on some dark fiction of the type that I think DM Stretch would actually really enjoy. So, I'm pretty sure that's the right address. If not, I will look it up. It might actually be in my server, so I will check. If it is, I will share it. Nope, it's not, so that's the best I got. But in the meantime, we're going to go raid DM Stretch. Thank you very much for joining me today. Yeah, we're going to be on in a little more than an hour and a half. So that is 5:30 PST or 1:30 AM GMT for Toy Soldiers Old School, our Pathfinder campaign in the Toy Soldier Saga universe, in the history of the series that I'm writing. That runs for 3 to 4 hours, depending. We will be, Monday's our day off. Aaron will be back on Tuesday for Ask an Old GM at 2 p.m. Pacific, which is 10 p.m. GMT. And I will be back once again on Wednesday for Diane Writes, 1 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. GMT. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great time zone, everybody. Don't forget when you get to DM Stretch to say, prepare to be boarded, because we are the Sable's privateers, and I will see you next time. Bye!